Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ. Welcome to this live broadcast of Pope Leo XIV's encounter with the Parliament of Spain. The Holy Father is on his third day of his Apostolic Journey to Spain. My name is Devin Watkins, and I'll be providing the commentary and translation for this papal event. From wherever you are joining us, I'd like to welcome you to this live event. Some of you may be joining us through various Vatican media channels, perhaps the Vatican News app, the Vatican News web portal, or Vatican News English YouTube channel, or our Facebook Live feed. We hear the Vatican anthem being played here in front of the Parliament where Pope Leo has just arrived. And the Holy Father is standing in front of the Spanish Parliament with the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, with whom he just met a few minutes ago at the Apostolic Nunciature, and with Francina Armengol Socias, the President of the Congress of Deputies, to whom Pope Leo will speak in just a few moments. We also would like to welcome all of you who are joining us through our various television and radio partners, especially EWTN, Catholic Faith Network in America, Salt and Light TV, Shalom World TV, Atma Darshan TV, Luminous Radio, and Catholic TV. And a warm welcome to all of our friends from the Deaf Catholic Youth Initiative for the Americas, DCYIA. Please visit our Vatican News YouTube channel to find translation of this event and many others in American Sign Language, or ASL. We see Pope Leo is making his way into the Parliament Hall, accompanied by the President of the Congress of Deputies. The Holy Father began this morning with an encounter with Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, and later met with several of his collaborators and those who work with him for a private encounter with the Prime Minister that lasted about 20 minutes. That took place this morning at the Apostolic Nunciature, where Pope Leo is staying during his time in Madrid. The Holy Father is now greeting the deputies present here. Pope Leo's first event after arriving in Madrid on Saturday was an address to the civil authorities and diplomatic corps of Spain, and an encounter with King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia. And during that event, the Holy Father told civil authorities that he came to encourage a renewed fidelity to the gospel and deeper reconciliation and cooperation within Spain. The Pope highlighted a call to religious freedom, the freedom of conscience, civic friendship, attention to the poor and the young, and unity that respects complexity. The Holy Father, in the afternoon of Saturday, made one of the strongest so far social gestures of his Apostolic Journey to Spain, when he met with the Sedia 24 Horas, a Caritas-run center in Madrid for people who are experiencing homelessness and other forms of vulnerability. The Holy Father's message at that event was that solidarity must be personal, not abstract, and he thanked the home for being a place where no one remains alone. Then on Saturday evening, the Holy Father met with around 600,000 young people in the Plaza de Lima for a prayer vigil. The Holy Father answered questions about faith, vocation, truth, silence, and witness, and he called young Spaniards to be missionaries of the gospel and sparks of a new humanity. Then, yesterday, on Sunday, the second day of his apostolic journey, the Holy Father began the day by celebrating Mass on the solemnity of the most holy body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, known as Corpus Christi, and led the procession with around 1.2 million people gathered in the Plaza de Cibeles and nearby avenues in the Spanish capital. This event was the spiritual center of his visit to Madrid, and in his homily the Pope said that Spain's Eucharistic and popular piety traditions must not become folklore or a museum of the past, but rather a school of faith that leads to service, charity, and commitment to the common good. We see the Holy Father now is signing the Book of Honor here at the Spanish Parliament. Later, after lunch on Sunday, the Holy Father met with around 220 members of his religious order, the Augustinians, the Order of St. Augustine, in what was a more private but symbolic moment. The Holy See Press Office reported afterwards that the Pope spoke about communion and unity of heart among Augustinians, saying that this unity can be a message to the world, especially for young people who are searching for a deeper spirituality. Later on Sunday evening, the Holy Father held an event at Madrid's Movistar Arena, where he met with representatives of culture, education, business, labor, and sport. The event took place around a central theme of what legacy are we leaving? And he spoke to representatives of culture and thought leaders and business leaders, and warned that technological and economic progress can lose its purpose if it becomes detached from the human person, The Holy Father also urged society to weave networks that are centered on dignity, dialogue, beauty, work, and the poor, and solidarity. The Holy Father is presenting gifts to the President of the Congress of Deputies. This gift was a medal of his Apostolic Journey to Spain. At the center, on the obverse side of the medal, is the coat of arms of Pope Leo, with the inscription Leo XIV Pontifex Maximus, in Latin for the Pope. On the reverse side, the medal shows an image of Our Lady of Almudena, the patroness of Madrid, and depicted in a maternal pose with the Christ child, and which recalls the deep Marian devotion of the Spanish people and Our Lady's protection on the path of the Church. In the center is a depiction of the Sagrada Familia, an eminent symbol of the Spanish Christian faith and tradition, as well as an image of a living and journeying church which is reaching out towards God. In the lower part of the medal, a broad undulating motif recalls the sea, evoking openness and encounter between peoples, and in particular the island stops on his journey, which will take him to the Canary Islands in Gran Canaria and Tenerife. And this medal that the Holy Father just awarded to the Congress of Deputies, was created by Daniela Longo. We see the Spanish Parliament has gathered here in Madrid and are awaiting the Holy Father. This is the first time that a pope will address the Spanish Parliament, and marking a first in papal journeys to Spain. The President of the Congress of Deputies, Francina Armengol Socias, will address this joint session of Parliament first, followed by Pope Leo's address. Pope Leo is being accompanied on his tour and toward the tour of Parliament toward the chamber by the President of the Congress of Deputies, Francina Armengol, as well as by Pedro Royano Ojeda, who is the President of the Senate. The Holy Father is receiving a sustained applause from the Spanish Parliament.
Santidad, Presidente del Gobierno, Presidente
This is Francina Armengol.
Tribunal Constitucional, Presidenta del Tribunal Supremo y del Consejo General del Poder Judicial.
Your Holiness, President of the Government, President of the Senate, President of the Constitutional Court, President of the Supreme Court, and of the General Council of the Judiciary, members of the Congress and the Senate, authorities, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me, on behalf of the Congress of Deputies and the Senate, to welcome His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to this joint session of the Cortes Generales. We receive you with institutional respect, with sincere affection, and with an awareness of the profound significance of your presence today in this chamber, the seat of the democratic representation of the Spanish people. Your visit constitutes a moment of special importance for our country and for our institutions, because in times of global uncertainty and polarization that threatens to weaken democracies, we need more than ever spaces of encounter capable of bringing us together around what we share: the struggle for human dignity, justice and hope. Your words, the first spoken by a pontiff in this chamber, will be remembered as a fitting symbol. In the face of adversity, our strength rests in unity and agreement. In this parliamentary house, which today opens its doors to you, a plural and open democracy is structured, built on respect for human freedom of conscience and the value of dialogue. Dialogue, respect, and also active listening, these three fundamental architects of the freedom of our societies, whose trust in solid, close, and transparent public institutions is crucial for the stability of democracies. It is from this conviction that we welcome you today, with the desire to listen and with the conviction that understanding among institutions, cultures, and peoples is essential in order to face the great challenges of our time. The Mallorcan philosopher, mystic, and poet Ramon Llull wrote, "Justice will bring you peace and also labors." And these words, which came to light back in the 13th century, could structure from beginning to end the task that now presses upon us, the enormous collective challenge of working united for human rights. In this age in which we live, marked by the deepest changes and afflicted by drastic unease, where only a few of the strongest impose the massacre of thousands of the weak with total impunity, where the known international order breaks down every day, moving further away from those norms that sought to restore coexistence after desolation, there is no alternative but to gather around what is essential and to reformulate the measures that commit us to shaping a more just world. It is urgent to stand on the right side. Peace must once again occupy the center of our international political action. The peace of which Ramon Llull spoke, the peace imposed by justice, peace achieved through dialogue and with a vocation for permanence, an arduous and meticulous task that requires courage, diplomacy, and cooperation. A peace that requires defending and fully respecting international humanitarian law, strengthening multilateral institutions, and preserving the common spaces from which nations can respond together to challenges that none can resolve separately. Our task must never be to multiply conflicts, but to work shoulder to shoulder to resolve them. Multilateralism is a condition for the possibility of international coexistence and a guarantee against fragmentation, isolation, and the imposition of force and unreason. The international order must be restored. Laws must prevail, not force. Humanism and solidarity must win. And they will win, without a doubt, only if we concentrate our efforts on the democratic tasks entrusted to us by the societies we represent. We know well what these tasks are: the fight against poverty, against precariousness, and against violence, gender-based violence, racist violence, and the violence that rewards privilege over vulnerability. The equitable distribution of goods, progress as a common good, real and effective equality between women and men, combating climate change with responsible policies, defending health as a universal right, building empathetic and hospitable societies governed by policies of integration and cohesion that place people at the center and protect the dignity of every man and every woman, including migrants, including the most disadvantaged, or a concrete task to which Your Holiness referred to as the open wound represented by abuses in the Church, and the reparation and compensation owed to victims, about which there has been so much discussion in the Cortes Generales following the rigorous report presented by the Ombudsman. In short, honorable members, as I was saying, we have the fundamental task of ending inequalities. Ending inequalities from the conviction that difference and multiplicity are signs of richness, and that the future, like the past, is sown in the fertile embrace between cultures, because the society to which we must aspire is one that recognizes, just as Your Holiness has written in the encyclical Magnifica Humanitas, that in the plurality of voices and visions that at times recalls the dispersion of languages, there is nevertheless a luminous possibility, that of building together, transforming diversity into a resource, and making listening and dialogue the common ground on which justice and fraternity can grow.
Identificarse con las palabras de su santidad es una obligación ética de cualquier Estado democrático.
To identify with the words of Your Holiness is an ethical obligation for any democratic state, as is undoubtedly agreeing with the profound reflection that motivates your first pastoral text, that technology must be at the service of humanity. Scientific advances have generated progress since time immemorial, but the challenge in which we now find ourselves, faced with the exorbitant and unpredictable revolution of artificial intelligence, is an enormously disruptive scenario. It is therefore necessary to build forms of cooperation, to define ways of acting according to principle of solidarity, empathy, and responsibility, which guarantee equal access so that the reason for being of this most powerful tool may be the search for the dignity of every person and the good of peoples, not the enrichment of a few, not the fierce struggle for power that we are now witnessing, because otherwise progress will indeed be bent to the logic of power. Allow me to point out that Spain already occupies a decisive role on this path, and only a few months ago, here in the Congress of Deputies, the first meeting took place of the UN International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence, a body created to foster the safe and ethical use of artificial intelligence worldwide. It is our task. It is in our hands. We must redirect the economy toward dignity and technology, toward equality, stability, and inclusion. Let us impose once and for all our humanistic and responsible policies, because no innovation will be truly valuable if it erodes what defines us as free and democratic societies. Honorable members, our institutional tasks consists in listening to our time, responding to its challenges, and protecting the values that sustain our coexistence. Today, this chamber reaffirms its commitment to peace, to international cooperation, to equality, to the defense of human rights, and to the inviolable dignity of every person. Today, as we receive Your Holiness with respect and gratitude, we join together in a shared responsibility, one that smooths the necessary path toward hope. Today we strengthen our confidence in tomorrow, in the possibility of a better world, and of course in the human being. We believe, yes, as the poet Ángela Figuera Almeric wrote, in the human being, because he lies down and sleeps beneath the lightning. He loves and begets on the edge of death, and lifts his child above the rubble, and every night awaits the dawn. Your Holiness, thank you for accompanying us in this seat of popular sovereignty. Welcome to the Cortes Generales of Spain. You have the floor. Thank you very much.
Presidente del Gobierno, Presidente del Congreso de los Diputados, Presidente del Senado,
Mr. Prime Minister, Madam President of the Congress of Deputies, Mr. President of the Senate, Mr. President of the Constitutional Court, Madam President of the Supreme Court and the General Council of the Judiciary, members of the Congress of Deputies and the Senate, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the President for her kind words, as for the invitation the Apostolic See received on the occasion of my visit to this country. I am also grateful for the courtesy of welcoming me to this historic palace of the Congress of Deputies, a prominent center of the institutional, legal, and democratic life of the Kingdom of Spain. I come before you as the Bishop of Rome and Shepherd of the Catholic Church, aware that the mission entrusted to the successor of the Apostle Peter as the principle and foundation of the unity of the bishops and the faithful places the Holy See in a special way in dialogue with peoples and with states. My presence among you is intended as a gesture of closeness to Spain, within the framework of mutual cooperation, and as a message offered in the spirit of service to the human person. The Church walks alongside humanity, shares its hopes and its wounds, listens to the questions of every age, and allows herself to be challenged by everything concerning the lives of contemporary men and women. For this reason, when the Church addresses anything concerning public life, she does so while respecting the proper mission of institutions and the legitimate responsibility of those who have received the mandate to legislate. She recognizes the autonomy of earthly realities and the distinction between the ecclesial community and the political community. And precisely from this awareness, the Church also offers a reflection born of the desire to serve the common good and to recall what makes human coexistence truly human. In this chamber, social coexistence takes legal form. Here, differences are heard, sorted out, and, when possible, transformed into shared decisions. For this reason, beyond the legitimate diversity of positions, every legislative task ultimately confronts a decisive question. What conception of the human person inspires laws, and what kind of society do those laws build? In this regard, Spain has a particularly rich heritage. Its geographical and political identity is intertwined with a history in which faith and reason, art and law, tradition and thought have come together in a fruitful manner. In its cathedrals and universities, its immortal literature, its legal institutions, and the very spirit of its people endures a heritage that has shaped its way of living out freedom, practicing justice, and organizing communal life.
Desde las páginas universales del Quijote, donde Cervantes proclamó que
From the timeless pages of Don Quixote, where Cervantes proclaimed that freedom is one of the most precious gifts that heaven has bestowed upon men, to the spiritual depth of Saint Teresa of Avila, and from the great Spanish legal tradition to the metaphysical restlessness of Unamuno, who recalled that man was not resigned to die utterly. Spain has known how to view the human being as more than just a cog in the social, economic, or political order. It has recognized the human being as a creature open to truth, endowed with freedom, and driven by a thirst for eternity that no temporal reality can quench. In a word, as someone whose dignity takes precedence over all utility, and whose service legislative action is subject.
Por eso, al hablar hoy de la persona humana, esta memoria conduce naturalmente a Salamanca.
For this reason, when speaking today of the human person, this reflection naturally leads to Salamanca and the thought that matured there. The symbolic presence in this hall of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella recalls the moment when Spain found itself facing historic responsibilities of universal scope. A few years later, Salamanca would undertake, with particular clarity, the moral and legal reflection that the situation demanded. At that university 500 years ago, when new worlds and immense possibilities were opening up in relations among peoples, some teachers understood that reason could not be invoked to legitimize whatever force or self-interest that seemed convenient. They thus introduced into historical discernment the question of the irreducible value of every human being and the moral limits of power. It must be acknowledged that society and the Church herself did not always live up to these insights found in their own Christian tradition. However, that question opened up an intellectual and moral horizon that transcended its historical moment. The intuition of the totus orbis of a human community broader than any political power made it possible to affirm the existence of legal and moral bonds among peoples. From Spain, the reflections of the school of Salamanca, and in particular those of Fray Francisco de Vitoria, along with other Dominicans and Jesuits, helped to shape a legal and moral consciousness capable of remembering that authority always entails responsibility, and that every human being must be recognized as a subject of rights and duties. That aspiration continues to resonate today, that dignity, justice, and the common good should be a measure of social relations, both at the national and international levels. This is one of Spain's great legacies, having united historical action with the clarity of moral reason. That contribution, born on the banks of the Tormes, transcended classrooms and libraries, and became part of a broader consciousness, shared by the international community, which continues to ask itself how to build peace on the recognition of the person, and not on the imposition of force. That legacy also lives on in this Parliament. Every time lawmakers ask themselves how to ensure that what is possible is just, that what is legal is truly humane, and that the will of the majority safeguards those goods that belong to all and respects that which no majority can legitimately violate. The Salamanca question continues to guide the work of those who serve in public life. Today, the new worlds opening up before us are no longer marked on maps. They unfold in technology, the economy, biomedicine, and the digital realm, where human power reaches into increasingly sensitive areas of personal and social life.
Progreso ofrece posibilidades admirables, y hoy lo vemos en modo singular en el
Progress
desarrollo
offers
de la
admirable
inteligencia
possibilities,
artificial,
and today we see this in a unique way in the development of artificial intelligence and new technologies. As I recall in my encyclical, technology in itself is not neutral because it takes on the face of those who conceive, finance, regulate, and use it. Therefore, in the face of the transformations of our time, our discernment must focus on the place of the human person in our decision making, and on how the dignity of work, solidarity, social policy, and the common good are today being addressed in new ways. This discernment begins with a fundamental affirmation. Every truly just society is built upon the recognition of the inviolable dignity of the human person. Such dignity precedes any concession by the state and cannot be subordinated to shifting social consensus or the whims of the majority at any given moment. It belongs to every human being by the very fact of their existence, and for this reason, it must guide every positive legal system. The Christian faith proclaims it on the basis of revelation. Human reason can recognize it as a requirement inscribed in the truth of man. When this conviction remains alive, the law becomes a safeguard for all and a guarantee against the imposition of particular interests and agendas.
Sobre este fundamento, me corresponde pronunciar hoy una palabra serena y firme ante quienes tienen la grave
On this basis, it falls to me today to speak of a calm and firm word to those who bear the grave responsibility of legally ordering social coexistence. This coexistence can be threatened by the throwaway culture, as Pope Francis so often warned. In this sense, if life ceases to be recognized as a fundamental value, what future can our societies have? Can a community that casts into the shadows the unborn child, the elderly, the sick, those who suffer in silence, or those who depend entirely on the care of others, be called fully just? The defense of human life is neither a partisan issue nor a confessional interest. It is a goal of civilization. Every human life must be recognized and safeguarded from conception to its natural end, in every circumstance of its existence. When this certainty is obscured, the most vulnerable are the first victims, and the law loses its deepest meaning, to serve and protect every person. For this reason, the moral greatness of a nation is manifested, above all in its capacity to accompany, protect, and love those lives that are most fragile. The common good is, in a certain sense, the social expression of the dignity recognized in every person. It does not consist in the mere sum of particular interests, but rather in the sum of those conditions of social life which allow social groups and their individual members relatively thorough and ready access to their own fulfillment. When the common good ceases to be a shared horizon, public action runs the risk of fragmenting into partial interests, capable of safeguarding what belongs to all. In this context, the family, the primary human reality and the natural foundation of the community, takes on particular importance. In the home, generations intertwine and the living memory is passed on, giving inner continuity to society. Where the family is upheld, the spiritual and social stability of nations is also strengthened. The family will always be the first school of humanity, where one learns, before anywhere else, the basic grammar of living together, welcoming life, caring for others, forgiving, serving, and belonging. Educational institutions also play a decisive role in this task. In them, new generations can learn to seek and love the truth, to reflect on the meaning of life and the dignity of every person. For this reason, many parents who wish for their children to learn to relate to others, to think critically, and to acquire solid values, place great hope in these institutions, seeking them as valuable allies in their children's education. This collaboration must always respect the primary and inalienable right of parents to choose the kind of education and formation for their children in a manner consistent with their moral, cultural, and religious convictions.
La afirmación de la dignidad humana no puede permanecer abstracta cuando tantas personas se ven obligadas a dejarlo todo para buscar paz, seguridad y futuro.
The affirmation of human dignity cannot remain abstract when so many people are forced to leave everything behind in search of peace, security, and a future. The tragic drama of migration also challenges the conscience of nations and the ethical foundation of the international order today. Numerous men, women, and children are forced, by often dramatic circumstances, to leave their communities and leave behind loved ones, histories, and ties. This reality goes beyond any purely demographic or economic analysis. It constitutes an eminently moral and legal issue. Wherever people are discriminated against because of their national, ethnic, religious, or linguistic origin, or because of their economic or social status, the universal principle of the equal dignity of all human beings is seriously violated. The situation of migrants and refugees calls for a response that focuses on people, addresses the root causes that force them to leave, and goes beyond the mere management of migration flows. This gives rise to a twofold demand for social justice, to offer safe and legal pathways, a respectful welcome and real opportunities for integration, and at the same time to promote the right to remain in one's own land, working to ensure that no one has to leave their home due to a lack of peace, security, or decent living conditions, including economic inequalities and the effects of climate change. In recent years, increasingly dangerous routes have highlighted the extremely high cost of this reality, so often hidden or ignored. Many people remain prey to traffickers and smugglers who take advantage of their desperation. It is necessary to strengthen prevention, rescue, and assistance for victims, especially within the framework of regional and multilateral cooperation. No nation can face a challenge of this magnitude on their own. Therefore, a coordinated, supportive, and effective response is indispensable, one capable of guaranteeing protection, welcome, and real opportunities for integration to those who migrate. When the institutional response is accessible, just, and coordinated, borders cease to be places of abandonment and can become spaces for the responsible protection of human dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is undergoing a profound spiritual and cultural crisis, which manifests in multiple forms of violence, polarization, and mutual distrust. In this context, peace emerges as a political aspiration, and even more so, as a true moral imperative. It calls for public discourse that respects those who think differently, institutions dedicated to fostering dialogue, a historical memory that seeks truth and reconciliation, and a social life capable of sustaining civic friendship and mutual respect amid disagreement. On the international level, peace demands diplomatic courage, ethical responsibility, and a vision for the future, grounded in respect for the identity of every people, and in the obligation of states to resolve their disputes through the peaceful means offered by international law. Every war constitutes ultimately a painful defeat of the capacity to negotiate, and also of that common human consciousness that recognizes bonds of justice among nations. Weapons may impose a temporary silence, but they can never build a genuine and lasting peace. It is therefore a cause for concern that in various parts of the world, and in Europe as well, rearmament is once again being presented as an almost inevitable response to the fragility of the international situation. True security, however, stems from justice, patient dialogue, respect for international law, and a policy capable of placing the lives of peoples above the interests that profit from war. The development of new technologies and artificial intelligence in the military sphere also demands rigorous ethical oversight, so that decisions regarding life and death are never left to automated systems, nor removed from the moral responsibility of the human person. The international community is called to rediscover the indispensable value of dialogue as a patient path toward just and lasting agreements, founded on respect for treaties, on the transparency of diplomatic action, and on the sincere will to prioritize peace over the use of force. From this spring confidence and hope.
Come ricorda il lemma della Unione Europea, in varietate concordia, la unidad.
As the motto of the European Union, in varietate concordia, reminds us, true unity does not standardize, but rather unites in diversity, making cultures, sensibilities, and traditions an opportunity for mutual enrichment. Likewise, within societies themselves, it is urgent to build a culture of reciprocity. Political pluralism should not degenerate into the constant disparagement of one's adversary. In a mature society, even conflict can become a path to peace. When differences are softened by listening and directed towards recognizing the needs, aspirations, and capabilities of all. But peace is not merely a political or institutional reality. It is also the fruit of conscience, where resentment, indifference, and hatred give way to reconciliation. For this reason, it is also established and protected through language. Words can open paths or close them. They can illuminate reality or distort it to the point of making encounter impossible. Those who hold public office, therefore, have a special obligation to be mindful of their words in order to disarm language. Firmness does not require contempt. Disagreement does not entail humiliation.
De este respeto al otro, nace también el deber de custodiar el espacio.
From this respect for others also arises the duty to safeguard the space where their convictions, their conscience, and their relationship with God mature. Attention to this inner realm allows for a better understanding of a decisive issue, for every truly democratic society: freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, a fundamental right that protects the most intimate sphere of the person. The freedom upon which the contemporary state is built, if it is authentic, recognizes the religious dimension of the human person, respects it and protects it legally, and it ensures that faith is not a reason for which a person has to forfeit his or her contribution to society. Without confusing the legal sphere with the moral one, it is also worth recalling that freedom must be understood in its fullness. Being free does not simply mean being free from coercion or having many choices. It means being able to recognize the good and commit to it responsibly. For this reason, every truly free society also requires a proper limitation of public power, so that the freedom of individuals, communities, and associations is not unduly restricted. From this perspective, the legitimate authority of temporal power must never see itself as hostile to religion. Faith does not seek to impose itself through privileges or coercion, yet neither can it be silenced as if it were irrelevant to public life. In this context, the sacramental seal of confession holds special importance for the Catholic Church. It is part of the broader sphere of religious freedom, which guarantees believing communities their own space for life, organization, and internal discipline. To protect it legally, as is done in a similar way in some professions, means preserving a sacred space of inner freedom, where the believer can open his mind, his or her soul to God, without fear of external pressures, as international norms also recognize. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to pause for a moment to reflect on some of the images that adorn this chamber. In this chamber, natural light streams in through the skylight that crowns the room. That light, coming from above, may remind us that politics, too, must acknowledge a force that precedes and transcends it. Likewise, the paintings on the upper part of the main wall depicting the reception of the Gospel and the Decalogue remind us of something essential. Without confusing the political order with the religious one, these symbols invite us to recognize that modern freedom has also been shaped by a long education of conscience, deeply marked by the Christian tradition. In that inner school, people learn that law must serve the good, that justice sets limits on force, that power requires legitimacy, that the poor belong fully to the community, that the foreigner must be welcomed in accordance with his dignity, and that human life can never be treated as a commodity. Una ley no alcanza su verdadera grandeza por el mero hecho de haber sido formalmente aprobada. A law does not attain its true greatness merely by having been formally enacted. It attains it when, in addition to being valid in form, it can stand before the dignity of the person and pass that test without shame. I invite you then to lift your gaze to the world around you, not to turn away from reality, but to remember that every decision by public authorities affects real people, especially those who have less power to make their voices heard. The expanse of one's vision consists precisely in looking more deeply at what is at stake in every public decision. This is why, alongside technical solutions and legal reforms, a moral renewal is also needed. Spain has much to offer on this journey. It possesses a language that bridges continents, The cultural, legal, and spiritual tradition that has successfully fostered a dialogue between faith and reason, law and conscience, unity and plurality. This historical experience also reminds us of the value of harmony and of the patient effort to build a peaceful and just society. May this noble nation never lose sight of its roots, nor the courage to look to the future. May Spain continue to be a land of encounter, of culture, of solidarity, and of hope. And may its public life always know how to unite the firmness of convictions with the nobility of dialogue and the greatness of service. May God grant peace to all nations of the earth, harmony to families, and serenity to consciences. And may days of prosperity, justice, and lasting peace descend upon the Kingdom of Spain, marked by the apostolic footprint of St. James and by the maternal presence of Our Lady of the Pillar. Thank you very much. Sustained applause again for Pope Leo XIV's words and address to the members of the joint session of Parliament in Spain. We are still hearing the sustained applause for Pope Leo's words here at the chamber, the Congress of Deputies. And Pope Leo XIV is leaving the chamber of the Congress of Deputies to sustained applause, which lasted for several minutes, 5 at least. The Holy Father's next stop will be at the conference, the Bishops' Conference of Spain, where he will speak to the bishops of Spain. And so please join us in just a few moments for that event. And with that, we conclude this live broadcast of Pope Leo XIV's visit to the Congress of Deputies, and speech here at the joint session of Spanish Parliament. My name is Devin Watkins. It's been a pleasure to provide the English language translation and commentary for this audience. Please visit our Vatican News YouTube channel, our Facebook, Instagram, X, and accounts for the coverage of today's event, and other Vatican and world news. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our in-studio audio technician, Gabriele Di Domenico, and our audio coordinator, Thaddeus Jones, and all our media partners on television and radio, and all of you who have joined us. Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.